Yeah, you know, this is one of those interesting times a year, I feel, like the January-February block, which is like at the end of the year when everybody goes back to have a retrospectus of like games that came out, and you start to like remember a bunch of games that got lost in the shuffle, and everything clings to you. All the balloons just start landing on your head.
Yeah, I'm gonna rub my socks on this carpet and then cast Lightning Bolt.
I'm not going to tell you what that is. Do you want to check? If they say, yeah, I want to check on it, something, yeah, tell them about those elements. Yeah, it's fine, but you didn't check. You just saw a bag of coins. Looked kind of cool. You took it. Didn't ask who it was from. Didn't ask why it was there. Alex, how are you enjoying your descent down to hell?
Oh, I've been there for years. I work there.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But you know, when you're down there, you can become a fire avatar. So that'd be good.
Right.
Hey.
Good news. That's coming up on our Saturday special.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Anyway, until then, thank you for joining us on Total Pebble Knockdown. I am Nathan.
And I am Alex. And Nathan, it is 2023.
It is still 2023. Second one of the year that we've done. It's
wow,
amazing.
It feels like this has been going on for like 23 years.
It does. It feels like the show has been going, this particular one that we're in right now has been going on for 23 years. We better catch up. So let's just move directly on to our first segment, which is a games you didn't think that we'd play. I don't actually know what we're discussing because this is an Alex game, not a me.
So I got a game from Crave for Christmas.
Great.
Or for my birthday. We kind of didn't do a huge Christmas. We just kind of exchanged some games. We, kind of just got a house. It's like most of our money's going to be going to that. So it's like, do you want to just get each other a few games maybe on Steam? It's like, yeah, that sounds ideal. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So everything's on sale. Let's get some games.
Sure.
So anyways, one of the games I got is going to be this games you didn't think we'd play. But Nathan, I would like to first address the fact that this game that I'm going to tell you right now is probably not one you'd think I'd play.
Well, that's good because that's the name of the segment.
Yeah, exactly. So Nathan, you're familiar with what games I like.
Yep, I'm aware.
More or less. Do you think I like tense games?
I think that if it's in a strategic game, you usually do.
Sure. How about survival games?
Oh, well, I'm pretty sure I know how you feel about survival games from the Ark discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, not happy about them.
Flip side of that is, what would you think if I told you the game I'm about to talk about has been on not one, but two different people's top games of 2022 lists that I've watched on YouTube?
That would be very odd because you don't usually play a lot of like top end games.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't.
So that's why this one's interesting. So,
okay. Excellent.
A game that I had put on my wish list I thought was interesting, but was kind of iffy about getting it because of the game itself. Really enjoying it, actually. I've put about 16 hours into it.
I have a thought of what you're talking about, but I bet it's not that.
So the game I want to talk about is Hardspace Shipbreaker, which I always get the name fucked up on trying to say it because it's a mouthful. Hardspace Shipbreaker.
Fun fact, I have played a little bit of it too.
Good,
so
good.
I'm at least familiar with the kind of thing that you're going to talk about, so good.
So this is both on Adam Millard's top 20 games of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
The architect of games, I believe, is who he is. Mm-hmm. And then Yahtzee, who just did his best, blandest, and worst of 2022. It is in his top 5 as well. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about it because I've been enjoying it. It's not the type of game you'd think I would normally enjoy, I think.
Yeah, it's not. Like, having experienced it for a little bit, it was definitely not something I thought to myself, oh yeah, Alex would enjoy that.
Yeah, and I was like, this game looks interesting, and like, it could be fun, but I'm really unsure, so I didn't buy it. It doesn't have so much of a plot that it's like, oh, this is too much to handle. It has you're in debt by about $1.2 billion.
Yeah.
And so right out the gate, instead of this heady, super crazy thing, they hit you with you're in debt.
Yes.
You are signing your life away to this company. It's got a little bit of like Aperture vibes to it almost.
Yes.
It's like the company owns you literally and physically, and like, here's the ridiculous stuff. You're signing your life away. It's like, okay, I see the comedic stuff here, I like that.
Yeah.
But hitting you over the head right away with just you're in debt by $1.2 billion is like, oh, there's an immediate goal.
There is.
Get out of debt.
Yeah.
Is it attainable? Yes. Will it take a lot of work? Also yes, but it's doable. Just the way they have done everything, like style-wise, really great. Links, the posters you can get, Link's safety third, that's great. Just this tongue-in-cheek humor, but also like it's, when you get into the game, they do a really good job of teaching you slowly.
They do. Those first ships that you get are not particularly complex.
No. And I like that they add, every time you rank up, they add a little bit more complexity to the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm rank 13 right now, out of like 34. The rank I just got, I think, is level 2 reactors, maybe. And so those ones, instead of just pulling them out of the ship, you have to take the coolant out, and then you have to take the reactor panels off, and then take the reactor out.
Yeah.
So I like that it ramps up the complexity as you go. It introduces you slowly. Here's the core concept. All right, here's how to move. Here's how to use your thrusters, how to use your armaments, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
It teaches you that. I think the gravity, I don't remember what it's called, the gravity gun.
Oh, yeah, we're just going to call it that.
We're going to call it the gravity gun. The gravity gun's really cool. All of the base concepts in the game are just really neat. Like, you're in 0G. You have thrusters. You can move left, right. You can turn. You can pivot. You can do whatever you want. But I think it's really cool that they mess with physics by, with that gravity gun, if you latch onto an object that's heavier than you and try to pull it towards you with it, you get pulled towards it.
Yeah.
If you try to push that object away to throw it, it pushes you. It obeys, like, that law. And I think that's really cool, because you can use it to your advantage.
Right. More, like, when I played it, I thought to myself, okay, well, this is kind of a puzzle. This definitely feels like a puzzle kind of game, and also a little bit of a physics-based sort of puzzle game.
It's problem-solving, puzzle, physics, but also they add in the survival mechanics to it.
I was probably like 3 or 4. I did a few ships. I actually just remembered that I played it when we started talking. I had forgot about it for a while because I played it when it first came out. My initial thought process was how interesting a concept it was. I probably didn't enjoy it as much as you did, but I thought that the concept of, like, yeah, what if you were just, like, on salvage duty to break down the ships that are in orbit? You never think that that's going to be a game that functions. You usually figure you're gonna fly the ships. Now we gotta break them down and scrap them. Like, you're the space chop shop, and you now have to break these things down without killing yourself in the process.
Which is also a real hazard, too. I have definitely pulled something off a ship, had it come flying, hit me in the helmet, and rupture the face mask so that my oxygen leaks out and it kills me. I've only died a couple times, thankfully.
That's good.
Because, it's expensive.
Yeah, I think I fell into one of the one of the reactors, so one of the scrapping places. I think I fell into.
I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the game, it's pretty fun. Like, I've, again, put like 16 hours into it, and I'm still, like, wanting to play it.
Well, that's good.
Because I kind of equate it to games in the vein of, like, Power Washing Simulator.
Yeah.
Or, like, Car Mechanic Simulator, which I've also really enjoyed. But it's got more to it. I've played a ton of Car Mechanic Simulator, because it's just kind of relaxing fun, and just, like, a little bit of problem solving and tinkering and whatever. It's really simple, but it's entertaining. This one gives you a lot more going on, which is one of the things that those games I wish had.
Yeah.
Because the survival mechanics, your suit integrity, your health, your oxygen, and then fuel, and then your weapon, not weapon, but your stuff has durability and will break down over time, so you've got to do that and repair it. Sure. And everything that you're buying adds to your debt. Then you're taking your debt and getting rid of it slowly by salvaging these ships. And then the writing and the humor is pretty great. The characters are all interesting, and I don't think you've got far enough into it, but you get a, not an admin, but someone from the company comes to your protect your Olympus station because
yeah.
they're like, hey, we heard that someone's trying to organize unions across the network, and we're going to send administrators to the places to make sure things are going right. And this guy's a fucking dickwad. It's like, you hate him, everyone else hates him.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm curious where the story's going. Like, am I going to get out of debt? One of the other people's like, hey, I want to kind of make my own shop someday and, you know, do this without links. You get stickers from doing achievements, so you can decorate your cutter and your grappling gun, whatever.
Yeah.
So those have crazy stickers on them. It's really cool. I've been enjoying it because you've got to use your brain a bit.
Oh, no, not my brain.
I know, all right? Me too.
Ah.
But you've got to use your brain. You've got to figure out like what you want to take away from the ship first and salvage first.
From the very start, you see the new ship come in, and you're immediately starting to think about order of operation and procedure. Okay, how do I dress this and why? And then they do give you some scanners so that you can start to look at like where your actual hard points are and where everything is soldered together, where you can cut and how you can cut those apart. And so you address it as an actual order of operation, procedural sort of thing. They just don't specify how the procedure is going to go. You have to figure that out.
And then, like, say you accidentally use your cutter and go into a fuel tank, and that explodes, and suddenly you've got the ship in pieces for a section, and you're like, oh shit, my bad. I've done that several times, caught myself on fire.
Yeah. And then, how much money am I going to make off of this?
And then, of course, you've got the bar up at the top, which is like, you've got goals for your salvaging of the ship.
Yeah.
And the more parts that you destroy or accidentally throw in the wrong spot, the less you can make on it. So like, oh, suddenly you can't pass that number 5 goal because you've gone too far, like breaking parts down.
Yeah.
So it's like, try to get the bang for your buck out of the ship. The sessions are like 15 minutes that you get. And then it's like, all right, day's over. You're done salvaging ship. But it doesn't give you penalties for not finishing. You can go back in and do the same ship until it's done. And I generally do. You can also collect things in there. You get a point where you get another ship for your own person that you have to like salvage parts from ships you're salvaging to put into the ship you're trying to repair.
Okay.
And so it's not like it's super intensive. You kind of go into your computer and it's like you just add them to the thing.
Sure.
And you've got this thing that'll help you do it. It's very minimalistic, but it's like, all right, I need these parts. And I can get, and so you're looking at the list of ships you can salvage, and you're like, all right, here's the list of parts I need, here's the ships and what parts are possibly on them. So then you're going, all right, well, I'm going to salvage this ship because I need a piston and a rod, and this ship has a piston and a rod.
Yeah.
So then you can salvage those, or you can salvage, like, computer terminals, and doing that makes them worthless scrap. You can extract the stuff from the terminals, but then suddenly they go from being worth hundreds of thousands to being worth like 700 scrap for the furnace.
Right.
So it's like you gotta weigh your options like, all right, well, I want to make that goal up top, but I also need this part here.
Yeah.
So what do I want to do?
Right. Right.
And then there's like decompression. I don't think you got far enough to deal with decompression.
No.
Some of them are pressurized still. You have to decompress them. There's electrical, there's cryo, radiation, heat damage. All these things can affect you. You can try to pull a computer off the wall that's still attached to like the circuit and then you get shocked by it. Perfect. For instance.
Love it.
I like that they add all that complexity in there and you don't have to do it.
Right.
But you can obviously make more money by doing it. They kind of give you the reins to go about this however you'd like, in increasing levels of complexity. But you don't have to engage with those systems if you want. They're just more lucrative if you do.
I liked that they kind of set up this idea from the very start, like you said, I need to get out of debt. And then they frame it in terms of like you being in your office, choosing what ship you want to take, and then going out. So that you have the strategy part of also figuring out what ships you're actually going to take apart, and then going out, trying to do that, getting back, and then utilizing that information in order to do the next one, and so on. Yeah. I had forgotten that I played it, and that it came out in 2022, until you just mentioned that, so I guess I have to add that somewhere onto my list of my games for the top to bottom. Best to worst. I probably wasn't as fond of it as you were, only because it came out at the same time that everything else seemed to.
Yeah.
So I, like, jumped off of it to play some other things.
I think a couple people had said, I think especially, like, Adam Millard was like, this game came out of nowhere.
Yep.
And he's like, it was kind of a sleeper hit. Like, it's really fucking good, but, like, it definitely deserves more attention than it got.
That feels like the theme from 2022 as I looked back on all of the games that I played, is that most of the ones that were actually worth your time were probably ones that fell so far under the radar that most people didn't know that they came out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad. Yeah.
I would say for you, if you still have access to it, I don't know. I don't know if it was Game Pass or not.
It was. It's probably still on there, so yeah.
Well, if you still have access to it, you should go back and try it again for a little bit before you do your best and worst of 2022.
Yeah, I'll go tool around with it, yep.
I've really enjoyed it. I'd like to actually get your thoughts on playing it in the recent memory, what you thought were. Maybe we can talk about that in the Discord even if you want to, because you don't have to record a second segment for this. But I know, it was one of those things where, again, I was really unsure if I'd like it because of the premise. And I was like, oh, it's got survival stuff, and I'm not usually a huge fan of survival mechanics. But these ones aren't intrusive. Like, my oxygen lasts almost the entire thing.
Yeah.
For instance.
Yeah.
Like, I can go an entire 15-minute session, and, like, I only get to the, like, needing oxygen in the last, like, 5 minutes.
Yes.
And I can actually, if I'm in a pressurized environment, I can regenerate oxygen as well. You get perks for that. I like that you can upgrade all your perks.
Yeah.
To make your equipment better. The survival mechanic is something that I don't have to engage with often.
Right.
It's like maybe once a mission. Twice if I'm stupid and I rupture my helmet.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because you mentioned that as a survival game, and then when you said it was Hardpoint or Hardspace...
See? Look at that.
Shipbreaker,
Name's hard to do.
Hardspace Shipbreaker. I was like, gee, yeah, you know, it's interesting because I didn't remember it really being so much of a survival game when I was playing it. I mostly considered it to be like a physics-based puzzle.
Well, 2 of the game modes you can do are ones that give you only 30 lives. If you die, they just reclone you. But this one you can do, like, it only gives you 30 lives. Good luck.
Yeah.
And then there's you get 1 life and then you're dead. Like a hardcore mode.
Oh,
so it's
that's
like,
an Iron Man. That's like an Iron Man.
So it's like, okay, so the survival elements are still there. Like, you can die. You can get caught on fire, electrocuted. There's many ways you can die. You can get exploded. Your suit can get destroyed. You can smash yourself in the head with a really heavy object, or you can fly against it. Maybe you can probably fling yourself way too far out there, and it might kill you too. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
You can probably get into the furnace and get immolated. I'm sure that doesn't help. Probably processed. Don't know about the barge.
Yeah. When you say space survival game, the first thing that came to mind was that, did you play Breathage? And it's like, no, I don't think you probably did. That's very much more like an actual game that's set in space that takes more of like a Subnautica approach to the...
I've seen that. It looked interesting as well, but
it's not as good as Subnautica. That's all I'm going to say.
I didn't play Subnautica, so that's fine.
Okay. Well, if you were going to, I would say probably play Subnautica instead.
But yeah, so I thought the game was really cool. I'm going to probably play more of it this weekend.
Great. Excellent.
Again, it's a game I thought you wouldn't think I have played or would enjoy. So I felt like we should talk about it.
No, I didn't think you would either play it or enjoy it. So
it's also a game that I do feel deserves a lot more than it got. I've looked at like how many people are playing it when I've been on, and it's like 700. It's like this game is actually pretty good. If you're into physics-based puzzles or problem-solving, logic, or gravity, flinging stuff into furnaces, space, or survival, or even just a game that's kind of a cozy game. There's a free space, Limitless, whatever it is.
Limitless.
There's a mode that you can just do that gets rid of all the oxygen and survival, and you can just break ships apart at your leisure.
Yeah.
You know?
Very cool. Yeah.
If you're someone who likes that kind of game, this has options for you, which is really rare to see, I think, in a game like that. That lets you have both a standard campaign, a limited lives, a hardcore mode, and then a free mode.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
but it's good to
also
the
they have
options.
another one too that I think that has not speed run, but like a leaderboard too, like a race.
Oh,
So it's kind of got stuff for almost every kind of gamer.
yeah. As long as the mechanics work for you, of how to play the game, you can play it in a multitude of ways. So
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of those interesting times of year, I feel, like the January-February block, which is like at the end of the year when everybody goes back to have a retrospectus of like games that came out, and you start to like remember a bunch of games that got lost in the shuffle, and you like can reevaluate them again. It's almost a really good time for a lot of those smaller games that didn't have giant ad budgets to come back and say, hey, remember we exist, because everyone's starting to recap. So that's good. Shipbreak Hardspace.
Hardpoint Break Shipper.
Yep, that one. So there you go. If you've played it, please let us know. And if there were any other ones that fell by the wayside, any games in 2022 that you'd like to remind me if I might have played, because I can't remember, please let us know in the comments down below. Okay, Alex, so I have Mechanically Speaking for you. Occasionally, I will get notified about different threads that are on, like, Reddit and all of those places. One of the ones that I do follow quite a bit, I think we've talked about a couple of the subjects on it, is DM Academy, and it's mostly about things that happened in D&D specifically, but sometimes they give me some interesting questions about the game itself. And so, without going into the whole Reddit post, basically the question came down with, if I take Lightning Bolt and I shoot it into water, is it going to electrify all the water? The thing about it is that I suppose we would be looking at this a little bit differently if we were talking about actual physics or the game world itself.
Mm-hmm.
But since this is a Mechanically Speaking, I guess what's important to think about right now is, what do you think a damage type like lightning, I think it's lightning damage, if it interacts with water, do you think that affects an entire body of water?
No, because an entire body of water would be dictated as the entire ocean if you did it that way.
You might have to think about something about dissipation, because in reality, if we were really looking at real-world physics, it would not electrify the entirety of the body of water.
I think if you were going to do that, it would have to be a distance out from the strike area.
The thing that people wrote back is, if you were looking at rules as written, it's a 5-foot wide stretch for lightning
It would
bolt.
be definitely bigger than that, honestly.
Right.
A lightning bolt takes up a 5-foot path typically. I think in D&D as rules are written, or lightning breath is a 5-foot like wide thing typically, or maybe 15-foot cone.
If I remember correctly, lightning bolt 5 feet wide, 100 feet long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is
So,
the effective area.
So if we wanted to go with that, then we could potentially say that it would affect anything in a 100-foot radius.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Anything within 100 feet of the lightning strike could be affected, is what I would say.
Okay. That might also mean you. Just to be... just cautionary tale. If that was a ruling on the ground, I might actually say that, just in case you're wondering, are you touching that water when you fire that off? Because that might affect you too. You might electrocute yourself. There's a whole conversation we could eventually have about fireball versus lightning bolt, because I'm sure there's two camps.
Yeah, lightning bolt.
Yeah, lightning
Fireball
bolt's better for me.
Lightning bolt just affects way more.
Yeah, and I like that it's actually targeted as a line instead of this big ball area. It feels like I have a little bit more control over it. But both of them can set objects on fire that are flammable. If that's possible with something like a lightning bolt, what it suggests to me is that the spell is able to interact with environmental elements.
Yes.
And if that's the case, water is an environmental element, so I understand why people would,
Sure, I mean, you could heat metal on armor, for instance.
Yes.
You can lightning bolt armor as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to be pedantic about that, you could say that a lightning to someone full plate would actually do very little damage because they've got a Faraday cage on them.
You can play around with that idea. I think unless you're playing with physicists, you're not going to get you're not going to get into too many squabbles. But then again, didn't you once play with a bunch of physicists?
Yeah, a bunch of science nerds. We made a railgun.
Yes, I bet that fired even more than 100 feet.
Yeah, that fired the sun.
Perfect.
I would say, like, if you wanted to play around with spells like that, you definitely could. And I encourage that, honestly. I really do. It's fun when you do that. Like, you did that with the Bard.
Yeah. We played around with the idea of what heat metal might actually do.
Oh, no, I don't mean heat metal at that point. I mean your shotgun.
Oh! Yeah, that. I think we talked about that on the show. I mean, technically it didn't really do any damage to any of the characters because we were past that point.
Yeah.
I think. But yeah, no, the ball bearings.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So the ball so just to recap real quick for anybody who doesn't know the story, we're going into a house, like a farmstead, and there's orcs in there. And my thought process, because I was worried about orcs storming the door, was I'm going to throw my ball bearings down on the ground, 1,000 ball bearings, throw them right down, right in front of the door. And that way they're going to trip and they're going to fall, and some of them did. Next turn...
Very effective.
It was very effective. Then, like, turn or two later, I use Thunder Wave. And Thunder Wave will do thunder damage, but it will also, in the effective radius in front of you, if you fail a saving throw, it will push you back about 10 feet.
Yeah. So imagining this as a sonic spell, sound waves, if it's got enough force to push someone back.
Right.
Like a person. I think it's, 5 feet, 10, 15?
I think it was 10 feet. It will push a creature back 10 feet if they fail a saving throw.
Yeah.
But there's a whole thing on Thunder Wave, too, where they say that objects that can be affected by force, something to that degree, will also be pushed back. I think technically 10 feet. But now we have this little problem where there's 1,000 ball bearings on the ground that have just been in the area of effect of a thunder wave that has pushed some of these orcs back 10 whole feet.
Yeah.
So, what did we actually do with that? Well, I made a mention of it to you. Hey, wouldn't the ball bearings be affected by this too? And you were like, yes, they would. Thematically, what we ended up doing, even though it didn't really do any damage to the orcs itself, was that those ball bearings ended up going through the back of the house and blowing out all the windows in the house.
Just peppered the back of the house. It looks like someone just assaulted it with a shotgun.
Yeah. Once that was all clear, though, we kept wondering to ourselves, like, okay, theoretically, though, if this was like a damage dealing kind of thing, like, how would we even calculate that? Even if we say it's 1 damage for every ball bearing, there's 1,000 of those things.
Yeah, I would be like, all right, roll it like 2d20s.
2d20s.
Like, that's how many ball bearings hit this orc.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how much damage it takes. It's dead.
Yeah, congratulations. But yeah, so I think that the idea of being able to interact with environmental elements makes those worlds feel a lot more interactive anyway, and people would want to play in those sort of things. It's sort of similar to when they had, like, Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, and if you put, like, fire onto water, it becomes steam. If I put fire onto oil, it turns into a conflagration and flames. Electrifying stuff, you have those different kinds of elements. Technically, rules as written for, like, a Dungeons & Dragons doesn't really account for that. It doesn't usually say that you have to interact with the world that way, but it would be a really sad missed opportunity if you didn't.
So going back to the original question of lightning versus water, I wouldn't say it would affect the whole area of water, because it could be a large lake, it could just be a small pond, it could be a puddle. It depends on the size that you're willing to, like, say that water is. I would say it would need to have an effective radius from the point that it strikes. Even through ground, lightning can hit things dozens of feet away, Ground lightning is something you still need to be worried about. Honestly, I would argue that if you're using a lightning bolt, like, Thunderstrike down on the ground.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would be like, yeah, anything within 25 feet of this takes a portion of that damage. It's not in the spell descriptor, but it is something that is realistic and makes sense in what a lightning strike really does.
It's mechanically speaking. I guess we should actually think about that from a mechanics standpoint. If we're going to say that, like, lightning bolt and water would not necessarily affect the entire thing. It's not like I can throw some kind of lightning spell on water and the entire ocean electrifies, obviously.
Yeah, all the fish in the ocean are dead.
All the fish in the ocean are dead. That would be a chaos world, more so than having dragons. But if we're going to say that, you know, electricity will transfer through water, how would we work that out mechanically? We've obviously got the 5-foot, you know, line.
I think what you'd want to do is have different variables for what it's striking. If it's striking a person or a creature, it does the flat amount of damage to that creature, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're striking water, which has less resistance than like the earth or the air or rock, let's say it could go like 100 feet, and things struck by it take maybe half damage.
Okay.
You know, they're not directly struck, but that's dissipating, and they take half damage up to the distance that it is a radius out.
The other thing to consider, and I made mention of this a little bit ago, is I imagine if you're using lightning bolt and it's in water, this might be some kind of an aquatic campaign. You might be in the water. I think that the key here to remind players of is, for me at least, that is going to also dissipate backwards, because lightning goes everywhere, electricity goes everywhere, and you are behind that lightning bolt. You are likely going to be taking lightning damage as well if you are in the water. That's gonna happen, and it might also affect, I don't know, the team that you are with.
Yeah.
Just so we're aware. Lightning bolt doesn't really, like, differentiate between, like, oh, these are your buddies. No, because it's an area of effect.
You can, though, if you've got certain classes and perks or feats or metamagic abilities or whatever it is, schools of training, you can have that ability, that spell, not affect people that are friendly to you, depending on your class and stuff.
Yeah, I know what this is. What is the spell class that damage spells are? Is that Abjuration?
I think so.
Okay.
No, Evocation.
Evocation. Okay, that's what I was thinking about. So in the School of Evocation, one of the features that they have is shaped spells, so that you can actually dismiss any part of your spell. Great if you just want to throw fireballs off, because it's like, I want the fireball specifically to be in this little area right like this. You could do that with Lightning Bolt. But we're going to assume that most wizards or other spell classes don't have that readily accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a special thing. So.
Yeah, I would say in water, for instance, we're not going to get into how water actually, like, lowers the resistance of electricity on your body, for instance. That would be a lot more pedantic than you need to be for this. But, like, I would say maybe in water, the lightning travels up to 100 feet and then deals, like, half damage, unless it, like, if you're in that radius, because, you know, it's still dissipating, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then, like, through the ground, maybe it only goes, like, 25 feet.
Sure.
And you take a quarter damage. Because ground is not a great conductor. And then rock, it wouldn't do anything through. Might explode a rock, but...
Right. But great for ankeg infection. Infestations. Always thinking about that. I feel like wizards should have gotten into, like, the pest control market of just going around like, I hear you have an infestation over here. Don't worry, I got a spell for that.
Zap. You know, you could do that as a character. To go the whole Dragonheart route.
I don't know. I think that maybe, like, a sorcerer would be a good option for that if we were doing character classes.
Pest control?
For pest control.
Druids.
Yeah, you're right. Druids would be good for that.
Yeah.
They got poison spells and all sorts of good stuff. Alright, so I think we're kind of falling somewhere between the let's make the lightning go everywhere and the rules as written, it only affects the 5-foot space. probably more in a spherical kind of way because, you know, lightning kind of dissipates out. Maybe I'm envisioning that you have like that 5-foot, 100-foot long sphere. I shouldn't do this with my hands.
Wow, edit that out.
Yeah, that's for the OnlyFans. The 5-foot, 100-foot long, you know, beam. And then there's like almost a diffused area around it, like almost like an oblong around where that beam would be.
Not through air.
Not through air. Not through air. But
air is a terrible conductor.
Yeah. But
that's why our phone and electric lines work.
Like if we're in water, I kind of imagine it like that one beam that's in the cylindrical, you know, framework of a lightning bolt, and then there's a diffused area around it that's almost like a giant capsule of, you know, the lesser amount of lightning. But again,
it'd be fun if you did that and said, like, if you're in this area, you'll get a static charge. Or like you could describe it as like your hair stands on end. Maybe you don't take damage. Maybe you just have static electricity in your hair. So like, that would be fun. Near miss. Also, your hair is like
if you roll really, really, really good on your damage rolls, that it has something to do to, like, you've successfully made so much lightning that you are now statified, and everything clings to you. All the balloons just start landing on your head.
Yeah, I'm gonna rub my socks on this carpet and then cast lightning bolt. All right, cool. Your lightning is empowered. Do double damage.
Just from rubbing it on the carpet? Wow, that's a pretty good deal. But you got to prepare that action. That's like got to be like a special action. That. Yeah.
Special carpet.
Special carpet. You have to do
a magic item from the secondhand magic store.
Yes. Perfect. Yeah.
It's a carpet of static electricity.
Yes. And when you rub your feet on it as an action, you empower your lightning and thunder spells. Just your lightning spells. Can't have thunder. That's overpowered. But the problem is that then you have to spend like a turn doing the rubbing your feet on the carpet part. And then you can't do the lightning bolt till the next one. Yep. So it doesn't really work out so well for you because you can only do it every other turn because you gotta power up your feet.
That's a phrase.
You gotta power up your feet.
But also, you know, you have to discharge yourself from that somehow.
Mm-hmm.
By touching somebody.
Yes.
And it will deal massive damage, so it's like a shocking grasp.
Okay. Yeah.
Or double damage.
That goes in the secondhand magic store. We got to keep a tally of these things so we can write a book together about this.
When you listen back, write it down.
Yeah, I'll write it down. That goes in the list with all the other things we were thinking about. So the question that I would pose to everybody is, how would you like lightning to affect your game world? Does it go beyond the rules as written, and if so, how?
And what happens if players have glass armor like in Skyrim?
And what happens if you have magic carpets that you rub your feet on?
Yeah, a whole new world. Carpet? No, I can't do it. Never mind.
That just added a whole new level to Aladdin.
That's our Aladdin plug for the show.
Yeah, we don't get enough of those in. We gotta do more Aladdin plugs. Plugs like a socket. Back to the electrical. Okay, anyway. So finally on the show, Alex, we're going to do a crit think, which we have not done in a little bit. It's about time to get back on our game. So, you ready to do some crit thinking?
No.
Okay,
we're gonna
great.
Pretend.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. So, also, when I was going through some of the TTRPG stuff online, I did see a really interesting question that I wanted to address, which is, what happens when your players end up making boring characters?
You murder them all.
Yeah,
I don't mean the characters, I mean the players.
Just the players. This is the Wet Rag gang that we've made. That's what their name is. And we're just gonna go into it. So, okay. Scenario happens. You get your game crew together. We're gonna start a cool, exciting campaign, guys. It's gonna be pretty amazing. There's gonna be twists and turns, and unexpected things happen, and amazing dark backstories. You're gonna love it. And your players come in, and they're like, okay, my character, his name is Bob, and he sticks things with a sword, and he had a good relationship with his parents.
Great.
And he's a dude. He's a dude, you know?
Great.
He's a guy.
Human dude. Fighter, I assume?
Yeah, definitely a fighter. Definitely a fighter. Gotta have a fighter.
Great parents, part of the City Watch?
Yeah, part of the City Watch, and then you get to the next person, and they're like, yeah, my character's name is Shauna, and she was working as a bartender for a while, and she sings occasionally.
So I'm pretty sure we've all encountered a boring or bland character before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can think of Alistair from
Dragon Age.
Yeah, kind of a meathead.
Even though he was apparently really important, if I remember correctly, he was kind of royalty or something.
Kind of boring though. Apparently, Aloy from Zero Dawn.
I might contest that, but okay.
I was just going by what Yahtzee said, so.
Yeah. Well, I understand. I mean,
our second plug of zero punctuation.
Hey, that's always good. Then there's actually 2 punctuations. We've done it twice. I think that it's important to understand when I'm conceptualizing boring characters, I'm not really talking about the Mary Sue.
Okay.
Because the Mary Sue is a different thing altogether about characters that really just don't have any flaws. They're kind of perfect in every way. And despite what a lot of people would like to say, most of your favorite characters from a lot of media probably fell into this category. I'm sorry, but it's kinda true. Anyway, I think what we're talking about with boring characters are more characters that don't really have a lot going on in terms of who they are. They don't have, like, rich backstories or character designs. They're not interesting. They're very bland or generic.
I don't think you have to have a rich backstory to not be boring. I think you just have to have some thought of your character, and they have to have some stuff going on, whether it's flaws or tics or things that make them interesting. I had a player play a paladin once, which was, hey, we're in a city. Is there anyone that needs help? I would like to help the downtrodden and the hopeless. And I would like to be a Mary Sue, and I would like to be lawful stupid, and I'm here to be a protector of the good. I am a good paladin. I do good things for the good people. And I was like, wow, this character is boring.
Yeah, because there's not a lot that you can play off of with that. Like, what happens if you have that paladin end up with an actual moral quandary? Like, what happens if that paladin, who's like, I'm here to do the good thing, ends up in a scenario similar to what they had with, like, Knights of the Old Republic? Because there are several times, even, especially with, like, KOTOR 2, when they did Sith Lords, where they try to make it very clear that what you think of as a good action might have unintended consequences. So, there's that thing that happens when you get on Nar Shaddaa in KOTOR 2, where you're approached by this character who's like, please, I need money. I need to feed myself or my family, and I need the money. So you, thinking that you're doing the good positive thing, would be like, here are credits, sir. You can now afford the food. And so you do that. And then Kreia comes into your ear and is kind of like going, are you sure that that was the right thing to do? And you're kind of like, well, what do you mean? It's well, you think that you just helped him out, but what you really just did is made him a target. And you see over on the other side of things where the guy that you just gave credits to gets beaten up and stabbed by a bunch of ruffians who then take the money because they saw that you gave them money. And you've basically just gotten the dude killed by trying to help you out. And the idea of that is, what happens when we get into the I'm a good, lawful, cool paladin that's always going to do the righteous thing? What happens when you present them with a scenario like that?
I think that's great.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's one of the ways you actually deal with boring characters, by putting them in a situation that is not black and white, where they can't just do the good thing or the evil thing. Because you have the other side too, where you have characters that just always want to do the terrible thing. And, like, I just want to be bad. Or you have the bards that are like, I'm just always going to be horny. Or whatever it is. And put them into scenarios where they can't just make the simple the simple choice of doing this thing or that thing and getting your good boy points or your bad boy points. Because I think actually in that scenario, even if you gave the money to the guy, I don't think you actually get light side or dark side points, or it's very, very light, not nearly as much as you thought it was going to be. And there's a handful of scenarios in those games. Maybe because it's BioWare and they explore that a little bit more. Even in the Mass Effect franchise, where they don't have, like, good and bad options, but they have, like...
They got the Paragons, yeah.
They got the Paragons and the Renegades, and the Renegades are harsh, but they don't always make it out to be a bad thing, just that you're going to address it outside of what the, guys in charge would like you to do. Getting back on track, dealing with boring characters, I guess my first thought is put them in scenarios and situations where they have to critically think themselves about how their characters are going to address it, and it can't be an easy, simple choice. They have to be able to think that through. What else could they do? What else could they do?
Just kidding.
Just kill off their characters.
Just kill them off,
Kill off the characters entirely.
Yeah, just murder. Kill off the players entirely. No, we already remember that. Don't commit murder.
You started with that.
Okay. Sorry, I was going back to it. Throw them for a curveball.
Okay.
You can throw characters for a curveball. You can bring someone in from their past if you wanted to, for instance.
Okay.
Maybe some of they don't remember, but knows them. Maybe they have a couple characters they said they knew, or maybe you just want to bring someone in that they actually don't remember. And that character knows something about their past. They say something vague, like, hey, remember that time that we did this one thing? Remember that time with the bank? And then have the player fill in what happens.
Yeah.
Or maybe that run-in with the town guard.
Yeah.
And it's like, what did happen with the town guard?
Yeah.
And you're like, the player might be like, I don't know. I've never happened. This person remembers you had a thing, and they don't have a fleshed out backstory.
That's true. You didn't bother to flesh that out at all, so we can actually expand that. And I don't mind, like you were mentioning, the idea that players don't necessarily have those fleshed out backstories, because that just allows you to fill in the gaps later, or to, allow some space in there.
Yeah, and having them be the ones that fill in what this thing that happened was, it means they get to choose what it was. It can still be boring if they want it to be boring, but it gives them a chance to do something interesting. Maybe it's just a social interaction. Oh yeah, I was standing in line with you at the bank that one time and we talked about seagulls.
Right.
Wow, riveting stuff. Your character is still boring. But perhaps they'll come up with something interesting. Oh yeah, we robbed that bank. Maybe it's a rogue. Yeah, remember that bank heist? That was fucking lit.
Yeah. So in that scenario, though, we have to make sure that we're leaving something fairly open-ended so that the character fills in the blanks. Even though you set that up, I mean, it's still possible that your, players might say something to the effect of, no, I swear, I didn't do anything at the bank.
That's fine, too.
What you still have is you have presented them with a scenario that somebody has determined that they swear that it was you at the bank. So now you could have a doppelganger situation. You could have any kind of interesting thread that might not involve that character at all, but circumstances outside of the character that they then have to address anyway. Because, yeah, okay, I didn't have anything to do with the bank, but now, mistaken identity, people think that I did. People think I was there, and the town guard's after me, maybe. And now I have to figure out how to clear my name. But in order to do that, they have to flesh out their backstory to explain why they weren't there.
Yeah.
They have to prove that they weren't there and where they were. So, again, they're going to have to add layers to the character to get out of the situation that you have presented to them. And they can help with that. You can interact with them on that, but it does have to get addressed in some way. Present them with interesting scenarios, difficult choices. You could kill off the players, apparently. That's one we keep coming back to. Those are possibilities. Here's another one that's always fun. Cursed item, or an enchanted item that just happens upon their possession, or that they didn't realize was cursed. Imagine if you have characters, maybe you have just a stereotypical rogue. Okay, the stereotypical rogue is, I steal things. You know, that the rogue that you got, very boring rogue. I steal things all the time. Okay, cool. So they go into a room. There's a bunch of things in the room. Oh, what kind of things? Oh, well, you know, there's some daggers and whatever. And then just see what they want to pick up.
Yeah.
See if they check on it. If they do any tests on it. They probably won't. Because, again, boring characters probably don't think this stuff through. They're going to just pick up random items. Oh, there's a bag. It looks like a bag full of coins or something. Oh, I'm totally taking that. Probably not going to do any checks, not going to do any... Yeah, they're not going to do investigation rolls on the bag. And they pick it up. And so now they, by their own accord, have picked up this bag of coins. They've chosen that action. They did not check on anything. They probably didn't notice the royal seal on that bag.
Oh, probably not.
That says that this indeed is owned by a king, for instance, and you have now robbed the royalty. They will probably want to come after you on that, because you didn't check on that anyway. But now, you have indeed stolen, but you have stolen something that was in this random warehouse that was actually belonging to a king, and why was it there? And what was the deal behind that? Was that a secret payment? Was there a note in that bag when they start looking at this? Like, that makes it sound like maybe this is hush money of some kind. And does that mean that we're going to have to get personally involved with the affairs of royalty and, like, the aristocracy? Is this perhaps a bag of coins that came from another country? Or another nation, or people that we don't normally associate with the kingdom that we're in. We haven't even presented a scenario to the character. The character has inadvertently gotten themselves into a mess that they then have to figure out how they're going to get themselves out of. We haven't actually done anything to... If they say, I don't like the idea of scenarios being forced on me, it's like, I didn't force that scenario. You chose all the actions that led to this point right here and right now. And so now the character has to realize by their own actions how they're going to get out of those actions, and it's gonna have to be, in this scenario, something that's outside of the rogue saying, I like stealing stuff. Well, now we're past that. Now you gotta figure out how you're gonna rectify this. Yeah. What you're gonna do to get out of this scenario, and simply stealing stuff is not going to do it. It's not gonna cut it. That would be my next thought, is just the very idea of presenting them with, like, a bait that they're gonna want to take that has unintended consequences.
As long as your players don't get mad about it.
Well, but I keep thinking that it's harder for players to get angry about something if they, by their own actions, without really studying something, have taken it on. Like, if they say, I steal this bag of coins, well, you said it. I'm not going to tell you what that is. Do you want to check? If they say, yeah, I want to check on it, something, yeah, tell them about those elements. Yeah, it's fine, but you didn't check. You just saw a bag of coins. Looked kind of cool. You took it. Didn't ask who it was from. Didn't ask why it was there. So we've got that. Again, always going back to the idea that you could just kill off the players. Yeah, that's
my favorite thing to do, apparently.
You love to do that. Sometimes there are boars or elementals that come into the play. Maybe there's a dungeon or a crypt. All sorts of fun things that you can do. I'll ask you a question, though. If we are not talking about in-game, how could we actually address it to the players themselves? Work with them directly to try and flesh out those characters before the game even starts.
I think asking questions helps
Yes.
a lot. You can be like, all right, cool. Do you have anyone you're related to? Is there anything you did in your childhood maybe that was illegal or illicit? Maybe someone you helped. Asking pointed questions that require, like, answers.
Yes.
Like, obviously, depending on their character type and what they want to go with, you can ask different questions or be like, hey, give me an example of a time that you were in trouble. You know, something like that that's open-ended but also makes them come up with something that gives them a little bit of character that you can maybe lean on later.
If you have scenarios, too, where you choose a background or anything like that, or a lineage, anything, you can lean on that, too, and try to flesh it out based on those options that they've done for their character design. Some of those are not just mechanical, but they can also be story-driven. And, you know, sometimes I think you will get players that specifically just state, hey, I don't really know what I want my character to be. That's why I made him generic. Maybe I just wanted to play a fighter. Maybe I just wanted to be a magic user, and I didn't really think about why my character did it and everything. My thought there is, leave that space open and say, well, I guess we'll find out, we'll figure it out when we're playing. So just start thinking when we get into scenarios how you want to address that, how you want to go about that, and what you think your character is going to do. It might be different than you. That's kind of the whole thing about role-playing. That it's going to be a little bit trying to explore the space once you actually get into it. And if the players understand that that's what you're going to do, I think that that's actually very useful, especially for new players that don't understand the overall social mechanics of the tabletop gaming. We've probably both played with some people that have maybe not a lot of experience with tabletop gaming, but also maybe they're trying out a new system for the first time, or they're new to it, and they create fairly simplistic characters because they don't want to get too heady into it, which totally understand, been there myself, I get it. But inside of that, there's a lot of opportunities to start exploring deeper levels and, like an onion of sorts, peeling back the layers in Shrek-like fashion to get to the inner core of who your character is. And if they understand that that's possible and they open themselves up to that idea, you might end up with a much richer character by the end of the game. There is also one other possibility that I'd like to throw out there, which is that sometimes really boring characters can also be really funny. Sometimes,
once in a while.
Sometimes a boring character could be really funny. I had an idea for a character that I was going to literally just call Jean Narek, who was just a human fighter who joined the guard and hits things with a sword, and every line out of his mouth was going to purposefully be the most bland, pointless thing he could possibly say. And I just thought, kind of hilarious if you do it intentionally.
I would say that would get boring real fast, but I think that's the point.
That is exactly the point. Sometimes there is something so fun inside of that scenario. I had this idea that his tragic backstory was that he was really good at hitting things with a sword, and the town guards came by and said, hey, it looks like you're really good at hitting things with the sword. Yeah. Would you like a job where you can hit things with a sword? Yeah. Okay, I got one for you. And he joins the town guard. It's his tragic backstory. He really thinks it's very tragic. Yeah, that he liked hitting things with a sword. Final thoughts on our crit thing. Let's wrap this thing up. In all seriousness, past all of this, how do you want to address it with the players themselves?
Communication!
Session 0?
Session 0, or, communication, asking questions, having them answer questions, asking tough questions.
Something that I think might help for new players when they're trying to do role-playing, at least I find that this was very useful. Okay, you're a fighter. Okay, you're a rogue. Anything like that. Okay, great. But why? Just the very basic question, like, how'd that happen? You didn't just one day, decide, hey, this is what I'm doing. There was a process that you went down that led to your career, whether it be your career in thievery, or your career singing songs in taverns, or picking up spell books.
Yeah, but then you have to have people justify why they're a thing. Sometimes they just want to be a thing. I think it's easier to have them pick something else that they're more, is more substantial. Oh, so why are you a sorcerer? And you're like, well, when a mom and a dad who both have latent magic powers come together...
Right. Is that sort of like the conversations we've had before about latent abilities versus career choices? Sorcerers
are born sorcerers, typically.
Well, and barbarians come from, actual clans, usually, where they're barbarians, and...
Yeah.
Druids have natural connections to the land. It's a little bit different than if you're a fighter or a rogue or, you know, anything like that, where you've chosen a profession specifically. Yeah, I mean, communication with your players, it's going to be important. It's okay if they want to play a boring character. I just think that it's, in the end, not very interesting for you who's running the game. It's probably not going to be very interesting for the other players, but more importantly, I think at the end of the day, it's not really going to be all that interesting for the player themselves. I think they're going to get bored of the game. I
think you should encourage growth. Doesn't matter if they start out boring, they can always become interesting.
Exactly. From a seed comes a plant. That's how you start the Druid's story.
From a plant becomes a tree, and from a tree becomes
lumber.
All those spears.
All the spears that can then go into the hands of the peasants to create that railgun.
Yes.
Perfect.
Episode 1 plug.
2. Episode 2. It was 2.
Episode 2 plug.
We usually pass a question along at the end of Crit Thinks, and what are we going to do for this Crit Think question to pass along to everybody else?
How do you cure your player's boredom?
How do you cure your player's boredom? Let's go with that. I'm curious about that myself. So, answers down below, or you can leave us a voice clip if you are over on Anchor. I think that we've cured our boredom as you yawn.
As a yawn, yeah. No, it's nap time.
It's nap time. Well, I guess I bored you to near tears.
Yeah, perfect. Get out of work, record, must sleep, because now I'm bored.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in that case, Alex, if people would like to find out about other things that we've done while you were not in nap time, where could they go?
Oh, I can still be napping, but you can go to TotalPebbleKnockdown.com.
Yeah, when you're there, feel free to click on the Patreon banner, because we do have early releases of like all the stuff that we do, and as well as bonus content. And when you're on the site, you can check out this show, you can check out Titanium Mine, we have other features that are on there. Hopefully this year there's going to be a few other little projects that we do throughout the year, so check on that. You can check us out on every podcast app known to mankind. If you are on Anchor, like I had mentioned previously, you can even leave voice clips over there if you check us out there. If there's rating and reviewing, please do that as well. You can also find us on various social media networks. I am at Titanium.
I'm at EXP Limited, and the show is at Pebble Knockdown.
Yes, you can find us all over the place. Check us out there, and for all the latest Pebble news, the pebbliest
news that rocks your pebbly socks.
That's right. At the intersection of tabletop and video games, there is a rock slide. So, until next time, when we try to cure your boredom yet again, and fail tremendously, thank you for joining us on Total Pebble Knockdown, and we will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye for naps.
That's accurate. That's accurate.
Yeah, it's accurate.
Okay,
it's topical.
Topical. Bored to sleep. Or death if you're the player.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Both are great. I welcome both fantastically right now.
I welcome our dead PC overlords.